I start this off with the why. You know, if I look at what I just, hey, morning, Ruth, whoever said that, I can barely read that. I just made the decision I tested all my stuff last night, got everything working, did everything, and then go to try to do it, and it's not working. And immediately I have to make many adjustments. And so I just prayed with you and said, hey, let's pray. Help me with my attitude problem, whatever. Mm-hmm. Help me with my attitude problem because I got to do this. Mm-hmm. Attitude problem because of what's happening. And once you help me with my attitude problem, I'll make these adjustments because I kept having to make more adjustments. And I was upset just a minute ago. Mm-hmm. Upset because I said, now I've done my best and I'm still not getting this done. Mm-hmm. And so it is befitting that the struggle is real. Go ahead.
Right. And I was just thinking, Deron, we were talking that technology has allowed us to do a lot of things outside of real time.
Right.
You know, and I always talk about how when the Bible was being lived out, it was being lived out. It wasn't written. They were in real time. Mm-hmm. You know, so these people didn't have the opportunity to make a mistake and correct it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Re-explain that again in real time.
Meaning when you're in real time, that's just you're just in real time. You don't get to save yourself from those moments that require adjustments.
And how would you save yourself if you
rewind, edit,
I got you.
Cut. You know, these are the things you can't do, and this puts us in a place that is probably more perfect,
right?
And because it's more real,
right?
But we this is why we have bloopers. There was no such thing as bloopers.
Right. I guess
bloopers
you're
are
right,
real
baby.
Situations.
I guess you're right.
But because of technology, we have been able to make things just the way we want them to be. Right. And now we're getting some practice.
Yeah, look at my hair. It's all over the place. Yeah, we're getting a lot of practice.
We're getting a lot of practice at accepting God. I was thinking about the story of Jesus and Lazarus. Mm-hmm. And when he died, his sisters wanted Jesus to come right away, and he didn't. He didn't. And I'll say, if I use that story, it was okay for him to be in real time. And he was teaching them how to be in real time, which means how to flow in the realities of God.
Right.
In our realities, we got a whole lot more control, again, especially now because of technology.
Yep. And I guess that's why I got a little disheveled trying to figure it out. But at the same time, I began to say, let's pray. And I had to calm my spirit. I had to calm my spirit and say, Deron, you're not going to ruin this moment, which I wouldn't, but I'm not going to ruin this moment.
No.
With my attitude, emotions, and all of that. Well, it's perfect, but it's okay.
And it never has to if we don't judge ourselves. Mm-hmm. We judge ourselves when we make, I shoulda.
Right.
You know, and if we could just see the blessing of the real time puts you in touch with the real you.
Right.
I know how, maybe it's been about 10 years ago, but I realized that I was in delay. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I would hesitate. When I would have a thought, then I would hesitate. I would have a thought to do something, then I would hesitate. Then I would almost, with some kind of judgmental mindset, talk myself out of something. And finally, I realized I had a delay as a person. But these kind of things, they don't allow you to be out of touch with yourself and to do artificial intelligence for yourself.
And when I wrote on my forehand here, D period, I period, N period, do it now. I had to make even right today, when you hear me talk out loud, I say, get up, Deron, let's do this. I'm keeping that principle. Move on it right now. Mm-hmm. Don't delay. Don't sit there, okay, I'll do it later. No, you don't have time to do that. You got to do it now because you got to make the best of every opportunity.
Absolutely. And you don't know, and we all know this. We say this to each other. We say these things, but we don't know. We are not guaranteed to predict what's going to happen the next 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. We're not. All we have is right now.
Right.
All I have, the decision is right now. What should I do right now? And that's very important to learn how to flow.
Well, all right, let me review this for you so that you can catch up with us if you didn't see our last service. And good morning, Soul Factory. Good morning, soldiers. Good morning, family and friends. Good morning to those of you all who are just joining us right now. This is our service. This is what we do, and we have decided that we will continue to give our gift. Continue to give our gift, and I'm so glad we began to set this stuff up a year ago, not knowing, and never got around to using it.
Right.
And I'm glad we did that because Jill and I, we get to focus right now and say the deal is we're all experiencing our own personal wilderness.
Yes.
All of us. And so when we all went to zero, it was the great equalization. The great equalization that this period is, that is causing us to shift, is causing us to make adjustments. So last week we talked about the wilderness, and when they went through Shur, they went to Mara, Elim, Sin, and Rephidim. And each one of those places that the Israelites traveled through and the Hebrews went through, what they went through was each one of these lands. And each one of these lands had a different meaning. One would mean the place where they found no water. Another would mean the place of the season of bitterness, where you questions and grumbles. Another meant Rephidim, the place of rest. This is where you must, and it's the funniest thing, this is where you must do battle. Each one of these places had a significant meaning. But the crazy thing, Jill, was that when I studied the Rephidim, the place of rest, and then when you study the true meaning of that word and its root in it and the history of it, it says it's a season of quarreling with family associates, family/associates. And I was like, well, I thought it said rest, but I had to take my time and keep reading. It says, where you must do battle to get the victory. So rest does not come until you do the battle. You must do the battle to get victory over what you're going through with your loved ones, your family, and all of that. But you got to be willing to allow that energy, once it comes in, to be able to shepherd that energy. But you must do battle, because if I read it, says, when you look at it, it says they named the place Massa Meribah because the quarrel of the sons of Israel, and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? And so you have to do battle with your belief. Is he among us or not? Go ahead.
That's it. I was reading Joshua. Okay, this is what I've been doing, you all. So I go to my Bible audio, and while I'm laying down, I listen to things. So I just finished the book of Joshua. But one of the things that I noticed in the book of Joshua is that once they got into the promised land, because remember, we're telling you that you come out of Egypt, right? Then it's the wilderness on your way to the promised land. Between Egypt and the promise, and let me hear it this way, the land that God promised.
That's it.
Say it that way, because you say promised land, and you think it means so many different things.
Yeah, he's going to give you what you promised yourself.
I'm trying to tell you. It's the land that God promised them. So, but one of the things, when they finally crossed over with Joshua, he began to allot the land, and according to what Moses told him. Once he gave the people their territories, he said, now go in and possess it.
Right.
Go in and possess it. Meaning that I can give this to you, but now you have to possess it. That means they had to go in and drive out their enemies.
Right.
And so when you're talking about something you just said about the victory, rest in the victory. Right. You personally have to drive out your enemies. And I believe what the wilderness has done, and this shutdown has done, for me, is that it helped expose some things.
Right. Go ahead.
That meaning some things that I wouldn't have paid attention to.
I'm taking a note.
No problem. And I wouldn't have paid attention to some things that are occurring right now, because again, I would have made some very interested in crafty ways to, crafty as in good, creative ways, I'll say that, to escape dealing with some things.
So now watch this. When you go through the wilderness, it's a place of testing. It's a place of provision. It's a place where you fight for victory. So when you got to understand, your wilderness is a place of test, a place of victory, and a place you fight for victory and provision. And in that being the case, they went through the desert for 3 months.
Excuse me.
And as they went through the desert for 3 months, although they were weary and the land was parched, God always provided. As I think back over my life and I look back over my life, I understand the daggone scripture that says, as I look back over my life and I think things over, I can truly say that I've been blessed. And it goes, I got a testimony. God has been good to me. And I realize as you get older, if you become present in your space, present in your village, present in your relationships, and present with what God is doing, what you will find out is that He's ordered your steps. And you may not like what you're experiencing. You may not like, okay, I don't like this station of life. For me, I used to say, by now, I had hoped to be. By now, come on in, baby. By now, I had hoped to be in this position. Don't lean on that because it'll trip.
I got it.
By now, I would hope to be. And so, but once you do battle and you ask the question, God, are you with me? They said, it's the Lord of mine, are you with me? They were saying, I want to believe, but my circumstances are in such dire straits. It's hard to even think that you're with me.
Right. And I think if you pick that up and how it's kind of discussed in the book of Hebrews, it's going to say something like, they tested God and they tried it and he had already come through. And so for them to quarrel and complain after he had shown them himself, then that put them on the other side of.
There you go. And so when you look at it, he said, when you go through this, he says, follow what I'm telling you to do. If you get a chance, you guys go to Exodus chapter 15, 20 through 26. And when you read that, you will find out. He says, I'm not going to put these things on you. This is why I choose to, as best I can, be obedient and do the right thing, because I don't want to reap certain things in my life. I want the good to be reaped in my life, favor. So now, we've done that, and so now what I want to talk about, tribulation. That's not just a religious word. Tribulation is about distress or suffering, and it's resulting from oppression or persecution. So many of us have gone through oppression and persecution. We've gone through all kinds of things, and it's being able to escape it, surviving, and enduring it. You can escape it. Doesn't mean run away. You can escape an emotion if you put it to death. You can escape something if you put to death. And so the last thing I want to go to now is not the last thing. When we look at the actual wilderness word, Jill, and I'm just going to go to the actual definition when you read it in Hebrew and you understand the language, it says, wilderness is the place where you put things in order by way of carefully arranged words revealed to you from the head, from the top. There's something, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say just the revealing of it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the revealing of it, and it's the instructions that come. You know, when there's a lot of noise, a lot of partying going on, you don't hear anything but the sound, the music. You know, but this is every one of us. I think about when Kobe Bryant passed, and you heard the conversations from the different athletes. A lot of them was getting back in touch with something. They were getting in touch because that's the place. When you get in that space, some things are revealed.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
You had something to say?
No, I'm reading and enjoying what you're saying.
Problem,
Go ahead.
No problem. And so I always think about the reflection.
Right.
I spoke to a friend and she just talked about how much she was reflecting. And I said, well, it's the reveal.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reveal. It puts you back in touch with what's real. It takes so much play away from us.
Right.
That we are now in the room with what's really real. And that's how we know we have a lot more good sense, better sense than sometimes we display when we emotionally overloaded with things, because we get sober minded during these times.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking that the reason we began to learn Hebrew too, because it gave us another perspective of the word. And and tell me what is your take between Hebrew and what we knew prior?
Well, I think I've said it before. One of the differences that when you're reading, and because it was translated, and you read
Mm-hmm.
when Greeks decide to translate Hebrew
Mm-hmm.
into a language that their people could understand, then they had to kind of describe it.
Right.
They had to describe what was going on.
Right.
Hebrew deals straight with essence.
Right.
With who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And not, who you really are versus the description. I probably given this example because it was the best example given to me. And that was when someone told you to look at the Hebrew thought versus Greek thought. And that I have a white car, a white SUV.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say if you ask a person from Greek thought, if you ask them what is that, and they would say it's white metal with 4 rubber things.
Mm-hmm.
That's a description.
Mm-hmm.
A Hebrew person would say it's a mode of transportation. It's function.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's important, because if you don't know the function of something,
right.
You can use a screwdriver. Many of us have done it. The head of a screwdriver to try to bang a nail in.
Right.
But its truest function is to use the other end and screw it in. Mm-hmm. And so you get better usage of something when you really do understand its function.
And as what's the name taught me, if you don't know the purpose of it, you abuse it.
You will abuse it. And that's why I read this somewhere recently, but form follows function. Mm-hmm. Function don't follow form. Mm-hmm. Meaning this, whatever your function is, this is why titles are not where the power is. This is, does that make sense to you? Okay. Because if you don't function as a mom, if you don't function as a father, right, which is a title, if you don't function as that, then the true benefit of walking in who you are or that position, and not just the function of it, but owning that position, it makes more of a difference than somebody who just have a title.
And that's why we are hopefully to encourage you all, especially you parents, those who are having to lead people, you are supervisors, whatever it is, hoping to encourage you all. But now, to be honest, parents with your children, as we continue to go, they're paying attention to us and how we are responding in this season. And and we have to respond godly, appropriate, or we can respond in over-the-top emotions.
Right. We are responsible for what our kids repeat.
All right. Let me
especially spiritually. We are responsible. This is why they were always told, and then tell it to your children. When your children ask you, why are you celebrating this? Mm-hmm. Why is that important?
Right.
Then the Bible would say, tell them this. Well, we also have to own that in different parts of our lives. Mm-hmm.
And when I learned wilderness, because my thought on wilderness was just what I heard preachers saying and just that people interpreting. I just saw hot. I just saw, they were thirsty and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the function of it, and when you spell it left to right, the first letter is mem, what we dealt with, rushing turbulent waters. Mm-hmm. And so And Mem is the symbol of a mountain in the ancient, and it's showing how the water goes up and down, and it's rushing turbulent waters. And then the next one is Bet. The next one is the tent. And when it's a tent, it's showing that the tent, Bet, represented the letter in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, represented the house and the family being covered. Mm-hmm. And so when you are in the wilderness, it's about understanding that you're covered and then getting a word, meaning getting a new perspective on life from the head, from the person, that the entity that you have surrendered to. If you surrender to hate, then that's going to be your guide in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. But if you surrender to love, then the love and compassion will be your guide. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
And so I've already given that. And so now you did the promised land. The purpose of this season that we're in, Jill, is to remove our unbelief and to build our faith to handle the promised land, as you just said again. Mm-hmm. And so with that being the case, let's just talk about what is happening to us while we're in this own personal wilderness. Mm-hmm. And the struggle, you all, is real. It's really real. Mm-hmm. We have all been reduced to necessity and not entitlement. Mm-hmm. There's some things I can't do, I just can't do anymore. It's not. I'm so glad I decided that I was going to continue to do this. Man cannot see his weakness until his circumstances reveal it. Mm-hmm. And so the wilderness is that you can't see what you need to strengthen. There was things until I went to Zion, Chicago. I said, I got work to do. I said, Jill, I got two things on the table. The questions of life and death, and then I got the opinions of people. I said, but you know what? The opinions of people are just as equal as decisions I have to make about life and death. And I said, I'm giving too much energy to a situation, and it's rocking me. Mm-hmm. And that was my personal wilderness, because I'm saying you would have thought that you actually believe what you think you're following until you are put through a test. Mm-hmm. And I told you, I said, Jill, it was in the evening. I was talking to you and I said, I got work to do. Mm-hmm. I got two things on the table, mm-hmm. and I'm making them both equal, and I'm giving them both equal emotional response. And I should not be giving the opinions of people that kind of life and death response. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking too, Deron, that in the wilderness, when you read it, right, in Exodus, in the wilderness, they were taught that man doesn't live by bread alone. Mm-hmm. You know, so those are some of the lessons mm-hmm. that you're taught. Well, I said, listen, we've been in a place where whatever we wanted, most of us could get. Mm-hmm. Really. And when I say whatever, okay, let's keep it reasonable. I'm not saying that you can have a Rolls Royce and you make $60,000 a year. Don't do that, right? Mm-hmm. But I am saying to you that you have to be taught that man doesn't live by bread alone.
Right. Right.
You have to be taught that. I think I put another note. He taught that. He said that. And he said, okay, yeah, that man didn't live by bread alone. He lived by every word that came out of the mouth of God. And then also what happened in the wilderness is because it wasn't a place of vegetation, mm-hmm. they had to learn, they had to allow God to feed them.
Right.
And when they said that he gave them bread from heaven or manna, this is what the word manna means. What is it?
Right.
See, they're now being introduced to something mm-hmm. that they were very unfamiliar with. Mm-hmm. And so in during this time, I don't know about you, but I am learning, even in a deeper way, that man doesn't live by bread alone. And if you had told me that I needed to grow in that area, mm-hmm. I would not have been the first one to say, yeah, and I can see it. No, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see how dependent I became on being able to just run to the store anytime I wanted to. Mm-hmm. To go in there and just pick up things because they had plenty of it. Mm-hmm. You couldn't have told me that I had become that dependent on those resources And this is why for me this is love. This is love because it forces me, it compels me to return to my first love and sit in that space. And to not be able to fill my own cistern, to not be able to work it out with my own power and my own authority.
Right.
And it puts me in the place of the student. We're all students right now. Everyone, even the scientists said, are saying even about the coronavirus. We just don't know right now.
Right.
Everyone's a student. Everyone's in the disposition of a student, and that is, I don't know, I got a leader and I'm following this leader, this spiritual leader.
The struggle is real became a trend or a statement, a cliche that our generation, the generation right before me and my daughter's generation began to adopt the struggle being real. And the struggle, I want to tell you all, our struggles are real. And our struggles are often real because it's mentally, and it's a mental struggle over something that when you transcend it and rise above it, it shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so the struggle is real. It also is about creative workarounds. When you were just talking about, having to do your nails and all this kind of stuff, where you were so used to entitlement and being able to go get this done, you had to go back to basics. And so the struggle being real is about it's about, it's not just about my Wi-Fi is not working or my socks are not matching, because we give a lot of emotion to stuff that doesn't matter. The struggle is the phrase where some people we joke, but we have to understand that it came out of many of us, black and brown, and many of us being oppressed, going through stuff, going through all kinds of things, and understanding to make it. If you're Jewish, you got to work 4 times or 3 times as hard. You've got to be excellent just to get a look of somebody to take a look at you. When the struggle is real, I know what I represent, I know what I teach, I know what my life is about. But if I walk into a certain entity or a certain store or whatever it is, that struggle that I feel, wow, you're being outcast or people don't want to receive, that struggle is real. But the question becomes, do I give that struggle preeminence in my actions? And like you said, this is about love. Do I give it preeminence, and do I respond in fear or anger? And so on the struggle being real, I'm going to go back to the slide where it says, and this is what come on, Deron. This is what this thing, what's down here? This is what this thing reveals too. The wilderness pride is revealed when we are forced to do something menial. So the wilderness reveals our pride, and it also reveals our stubbornness, and is revealed when we are forced to do something we don't desire to do. And so when we go to the struggle as being real, it's also showing that my lack of faith is revealed, because I'm required to do more than I felt that I was able to do. And if you're not careful, because I'm just about finished this lesson, if you're not careful, you begin to understand the struggle is real. And if you don't make certain choices, and if I can look at these other scriptures, you don't make certain choices, I'm just going to read Exodus. No, John chapter 16, verse 32. But take notice, the hour is coming, and it has arrived, when you will all be dispersed and scattered, every man to his own home, leaving me alone. Yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace, confidence. In the world you have tribulation and trials and distress and frustration, but be of good cheer. Take courage. Be confident, certain, and undaunted. For I have overcome the world, and I have deprived it of power to harm you, and have conquered it for you. And I think that we don't understand, Jill, that what God says is, listen, you're going to go through something, but now you must take courage. Mm-hmm. You must not give your confidence away.
Mm-hmm. And again, in our life, he said, but take notice, the hour is coming and it has arrived. Mm-hmm. If I look at this situation, Deron, you talked about this situation 10, 11 years ago, at least 2009. Mm-hmm. And while I believed it would be something, mm-hmm. and never in my mind, it may have been in your mind, but it never entered my mind that this would happen in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. That in my lifetime, I would be walking the street with a mask on. Mm-hmm. In my lifetime, I would be shopping with gloves on. It never entered my mind. Mm-hmm. You know how the youngest say, I was shook. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Shooken is what they say. Listen, it never entered my mind. But whether it is the things that these disciples were going through when it came to struggle, mm-hmm. or what we're going through, an hour is coming.
Right.
And an hour was coming, and it has arrived. It has arrived. And who am I going to be mm-hmm. during this hour? Then it went on to say, when this hour has arrived when you will all be dispersed and scattered, and every man to his own home, right. leaving me alone. Well, right now, what he's saying to them, in this hour, when it gets this kind of tight, mm-hmm. your tendency mm-hmm. is going to be to run and leave the foundation mm-hmm. that you were standing on. Yeah. Especially, let's talk about them. Even though Jesus was with them, they had not experienced him as the Christ in a sense, because this was not the resurrected. Mm-hmm. They still had controversy over those kind of things mm-hmm. back then. And so there's a tendency to want to go back. We talked about the golden calf situation mm-hmm. last week on Wednesday. But there is right. a tendency to go to some old helps.
Listen, I'm going to say, I got to deal with that. Mm-hmm. Tasad. Mm-hmm. When you deal with what it means, it basically says they rose up to play. Mm-hmm. Moses was a long time coming back, and he was on the mountain. Mm-hmm. They were expecting, he was their leader at that point, but he was absent. And so they lost their faith. In them losing their faith, they said to Moses, Aaron, Moses' right-hand man, to say, hey, listen, we got to do something. We got to change this. We got to do whatever.
It was Aaron's, it was Aaron's idea.
That's what I was going to say. It is Aaron's mm-hmm. idea, because he comes up with, here's what we're going to do.
Because that's what they did when they were in Egypt. Mm-hmm. When they were in Egypt, this is how problems were solved. Mm-hmm. They found a God. They created a God for it, rain, Listen, I got to be able to say, don't forget. I turned on the TV. I ain't had such temptation with a certain pizza in a long time. But a couple times I said, I'm just going to go ahead and get that pizza. And I said, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. And I said, you're going to choose to be obedient. Well, and out of all times, now all of a sudden Uber Eats wants to deliver to your area,
to this area. I said, get out of my face. I've been trying to get y'all to deliver all these times when I wanted to get my groove on. But now I got to resist the temptation to go to some helps. Resist the temptation to decide. I say, I got to remain disciplined even in this season. I got to choose it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
you going to say something?
I was going to say, for so long, we didn't have to be alone with those thoughts that we didn't like. Mm-hmm. There's some thoughts we get to have. Some folks, nails, hair, what somebody think about you. Are you really this? Are you all that you thought you was going to be? Are you more than you thought? Right. Somebody said there are thoughts that we used to be able, we didn't have to sit alone with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And let me say this, when I get the text and just people are sending words through other people to say, hey, thanks, or whatever the case may be. I was talking to two of the disciples that I had mentored over the years. And it was last week. And as we began to talk about it, I said to them, hey, I've seen this movie before. Mm-hmm. You know, because I lived it in my mind in terms of when I taught and I did all that stuff. And that's when Wisdom said, oh, no, you haven't. You've only seen the trailer. Listen to me, Soul Factory. Soldiers and anybody else who's paid attention to the message that comes out of here. He said, no, you saw the trailer. You saw images of what I was bringing, but you did not see this movie. And so, in other words, you have not experienced this. You prophesy in part, you know in part. In the beginning, it's not clear, but later it will be made clear. And I had to say, no, I did not see this movie. That's arrogant. I saw the trailer, and then God says, now make the adjustments in this season. Because if you make the adjustments in this season, then you will understand he's now putting me in a new place. Mm-hmm. Because I had no idea that I would have this kind of time to do what we have to do right now. Right.
And so I just want to kind of piggyback again on this. When it said the hour is coming, it has arrived when you will all be dispersed and scattered, and every man to his own home, mm-hmm. leaving me alone. Yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I've told you these things, mm-hmm. so that in me you may have peace and confidence. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes we want to believe that we know better than the Lord. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We know better, and this is why I think you said on the top half of the this broadcast, right, why it's important to be in real time. See, this is real time now. The hour has come. It has arrived. That's real time.
Listen, I was saying it jokingly, but I have not gone out there. But I said, we're going to know things has changed when the hood puts on masks. When the hood, people in the hood begin to wear masks, we're going to know that the situation at Cheese Station has changed. And in it changing, we are now in that time, because that means that even those that we think don't think, some people are rebellious or whatever, because not all hoods are rebellious. But even though we see certain people that we think are rebellious, they're also concerned about living too. Mm-hmm. And so when the summer comes, if we're still in this place, we will see the gangsters wearing white T-shirts and blue masks. They'll design them and do whatever, but everybody wants to live.
Mm-hmm. And again, I think that this is where it is so important. What does that mean to you? Mm-hmm. Before we move on to the next scripture, what does it mean to you to be taught that you don't live by bread alone in this mm-hmm. season right here? The moment has arrived. You know, the important thing about these moments right here, and this is kind of captured in this John scripture. The important thing is that, do you see the message of God in this moment right here? Now, I'm not talking about punishment, what you did wrong, right? I have no idea. I don't have any idea what your personal conversations may be with the Lord, but I am saying right now, do you recognize God's presence in your life? Mm-hmm. Because in every situation, now we know the scripture, all things work for our good. What does that look like right now? Mm-hmm. Let's walk those things out right now. How does this work out for your good? I can tell you, for me, it's the revealing. Okay. There's no doubt it's the revealing. It is the casting down of thoughts mm-hmm. About things, like I said, I didn't even have to think about for a period of time. Mm-hmm. But what does this moment mean to you spiritually? And I think, Ron, that's one of the most important things, because again, this is what he said to them. He said, listen, verse 33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you that you're going to scatter. I'm telling you that you're going to disperse. This is what he's telling to his disciples, because I know your faith is still lacking in this area. Right. I'm telling you this is what you're going to do, so that when you do it, you know that let God be the truth and every man be a liar. But when you do it, you won't condemn yourself.
Right.
for behaving in an age-appropriate way. But I also have an expectation to grow you up. But I also know, Jesus knows, I haven't done all that you need to see in order for you to grasp what I'm going to ask you to grasp once I'm resurrected.
The struggle is real is when you get a creative walk around for life when you have limited means.
Mm-hmm.
The struggle is real when you have to get a and listen, we have to humble ourselves in this season. There are many of us, and I wrote down here, you're going to have to help somebody and you're going to have to get help. You're going to listen. I messed around and went around yesterday and met my neighbors. I didn't have time to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
I met 2 neighbors and sat there, and he said, "Hey, you the preacher, right?" I guess I am. And I said, "You're so and so." He says, "No." I said, "Wow." And I said, "You know what, my friend? It's a shame, but I said I had gotten so wounded and turned off by people. I didn't want to talk to nobody and meet nobody. And I said, God, I'm so sorry that I have not met my neighbors." And I went through and met my neighbors because here I just wanted to be to myself. And God says, you don't know when you will need help. You don't know. And you need to know your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And come to find, they said, well, I've been living here. And because I would drive through, we wave, blow our horns and do that stuff. But I didn't want to deal with that. So now watch this. When you say you're prospering, you don't know that in Hebrew, it's resh bet.
Mm-hmm.
Struggle. Resh, which is the head. Bet, the family. Mm-hmm. It means to increase. Mm-hmm. It means that when you struggle, you will take point, become the head of your family. And when you put them together, it's the head of the family, and it's about increasing because you will now have to put forth valiant efforts that you didn't put forth before.
Right. And know that another way to say head is authority.
There you go. That's a better way.
And so when you struggle and when you quit, you don't struggle.
Mm-hmm.
When you struggle, you strive.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have victory, when you have victory, you have actually taken authority over that, whether that was a mindset, an attitude, you actually get to take authority over that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Let me go. You get something
No.
Let's just be real. I've had to, hold on. When the people hear you say you're prospering right now, we're talking about prospering internally. We're talking about our spirit being raised from one frequency to another frequency, a higher level. And I've had to make a decision to trust and say, God, this was not in my plans. I did not think I would have to go through something like this as well. But now, I must trust you in this too. Mm-hmm. And I will not be bogged down by my emotions and bogged down by uncertainty. I will not. This is real. And now, God, things are changing, and I've had to accept some hard decisions and some hard truths that changes my entire life. And it is changing all of our lives. One of my neighbors told me, and I said, I got to get to talk with him. He was just a few years older than me. Probably about 6 years older than me. And he said, hey, man, I've lost 6 family members. He said, I lost 6 family members. And he said, it's tough.
To corona or just period?
Yeah, he said, yes. Mm. He lost 6 family members. Mm. And let me say this. I know 2 of them died of health concerns. Mm-hmm. And he said, he said, this corona thing is real. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. This is real. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, my God, what is happening? And I realized, and he looked at me and I said, my God, this is amazing. And so I went and wrote a note and put it in one of my neighbor's mailbox to let him know, hey, listen, I thank you for saying hello and waving and all these different things, mm-hmm. because you're going to need somebody, and you're going to have to help somebody as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is a season where, when you're in the wilderness, it's about giving love to one another and bringing help. Go ahead.
Right. And, in terms of Deron, when you were just talking about prospering, before I get to, I'm going to go to Isaiah. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What does that mean to me? What does prospering mean to me? It means that my flesh is decreasing and my spirit is increasing.
Right.
I'm becoming more aware of those things. I have not cooked, because I won't eat out.
Right.
I won't eat out. I don't have anything bad.
You used to not want to eat. I mean, you said you won't eat out now?
Now. I won't. I won't go and grab anything. So I'm telling you, I have learned how to make a nice 15-bean soup.
Yeah.
I learned how to cook, and not that I would not have known, but I don't make chili from a can. I got to get dry beans. These are the things I wouldn't even take time to do. I wouldn't take the time to do it. Because I was, we was on that fast pace, blessed and highly favored dance. You was doing that dance.
Right.
And it's still true. This is a blessing. It's a blessing again to learn that we do not live by bread alone.
Right. And
that our sustenance is not just us being able to go out and get things, physical things, but spiritually, it's our spirit that sustains us during times of trouble. But
you said you were going to that.
Yes, I am. But I'm getting ready to read now Isaiah 26, 3-4. And it says, "You will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast, because he trusts in you. Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord is the rock eternal." The complete Jewish Bible would say, "A person whose desire rests on you, you preserve in perfect peace, because he trusts in you." This is the time where we get to trust. Mm-hmm. You can't trust in the things. Listen, your money is no good in a store with empty shelves. You have all the money you want. It's no good if you can't get the things that you need. Right. So, of course, that's what we want. But guess what? Our perfect peace, if with those whose minds stay steadfast on me. And what does that look like? What does it look like for your mind to stay on God? And I've said this over the most recently, because I think that we talk about God, but then I can ask you, then what is God? What is that? And for me, God is truth. Mm-hmm. It's the spirit of truth. Mm-hmm. And so how do I keep my mind stayed on God? Of course, it's on his principles, and it's true. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what I think it becomes difficult to run for some of us too, is that when we do make contact with the Word of God, we don't know the difference between the principles of God and what part was cultural. Mm-hmm. So then we just and then, as I said earlier in the broadcast, then now you're reading someone's description, because if you don't know the words behind the word, the translated word, then you're still dealing with someone else who has interpreted and then translated that in a way in the best way they know how to do. And so it's just very important how Jill personally, let me give me a second. Let me look at somebody's name. Lynn, Irvin, how are you going to do that? Tanisha, Roberts, how are you going to make that happen? Mm-hmm. Karima, what does that mean to you?
You can see all that?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm telling you, I'm straining though. Amos, Dyson, Senior, what does that mean to you?
Right.
What does it mean to you all to know how to follow the Spirit of God? What does that mean to you?
Now, you want me to read, but I'm going to stay focused, because I can't do that and lift my glasses.
Okay, no, you don't need to do that.
You know what it means? Literally. I got some bread yesterday, and it was the end piece. Mm-hmm. Both of the end pieces was in there. Mm-hmm. And no, just one of the end pieces that was in there. And normally I would say that was my last resort. And I said, no, you're going to eat that end piece and you're going to enjoy it. But then wisdom said, now do what I've shown you to do. Go dig a hole in your yard and bake some bread in a dirt hole. And that's what you can do with your time right now. You can bake some bread in a dirt hole. I'm not going to do it anywhere where you can see it, but I'm going to bake me a loaf of bread in the dirt. Why? Because I am saying, well, this is the place. Now, remember, you got to understand, you triggered me this. We were looking at something on one of those Gospels, and then you said something about Jeremiah when Yeshua was walking through the fields, and he said, see that they're right. They planted gardens. It was like a Jeremiah.
Jeremiah, yeah.
It was Jeremiah.
It was Jeremiah 29 when they were going to go into exile and captivity. And Jeremiah told them, and when you get there, pray for the land that you're in. Pray for wherever you are. Keep praying. Marry. When you get there, live. Because we tend to get in these situations, and maybe we want to pout.
Right.
And maybe we don't want to live. Maybe we want to withdraw from life because things just aren't changing. Mm-hmm. But again, what is that to you? Mm-hmm. Who is God to you?
Mm-hmm. It's back
because this is where it's going to matter. This is where it's going to matter. Or this is where some things, some people's faith can be shipwrecked or terribly disturbed. Because what we said a couple of weeks ago, this is groundless territory. This is moving. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're one of those people who are looking at the news, from day to day, you don't know. Okay, oh, good, it's getting better. Look at the curve. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, well, that was a curve. Now the curve is not. Listen, keep your mind stayed. Let me read it again. You will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast to you. Steadfast. Just what's our goal? Don't lose your mind.
Right. Mm-hmm. It makes sense when you all hear me talking about bread. I went and visited an Amish family. Mm-hmm. Well, it has to be years ago. Mm-hmm. And I spent time in the summer going to their farm and their spot at 5:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock, because that's when their sons came out to milk the cows and do all these things. And I saw them. That's why I learned how to slaughter chickens, but I didn't buy none this time. But I learned how they lived. And so when I'm talking about they didn't have electricity. And it was some of the best food I've ever had. They had lunch with us, and we kept going out there, and I was looking, and I just was amazed at the simple life that they were living. And so I want bread. And so I'm going to get some flour, and I'm going to learn how to bake that bread. And when I may have to do it on the thing and to show it to my granddaughter, because I want her to see you can make it off of the land. You can do it. And so you got to humble yourself. There's things to do. And believe me, I'm not saying bake bread in a dirt hole just to be saying it. I'm also telling you how to think. It's back to basics time. And I remember someone told us a few weeks ago, they said the struggle is real. What the adjustments that they're having to make in beauty tips and all these different things, the struggle is really real. And we said you're going to have to learn how to accept yourself in this season. And you can't get prettied up like you normally would, or you can try to do that. But the real struggle is ain't nobody seeing you but you right now.
Oh yeah, listen, I know that I was the queen. Deron bought some breads that you could make, and I said, okay, I'm gonna make this banana bread. It was with almond flour, was part of it, gluten free, all of that. By the time I finished making that bread, I was like, oh.
No, let me give my version. No. My version. She made a loaf of that bread, and I ate it, and it was good. Mm-hmm. And now it was good. And I didn't even think about it. You said, and you were coughing. You said, I said, what's happening? That bread has a lot of grain in it. that bread has grain. Did you like that bread? I said, yeah, I like the bread. Well, you've been eating right. You've been doing the right thing.
So you're accustomed to that you know.
The taste difference.
It's the revealing. It's the revealing, and it's okay. What did these Amish, let me just give a couple of things from the Amish piece that I want you all to listen to. Mm-hmm. Not only did he go to visit the Amish, but their kids were out there at the break of dawn.
Before the break of dawn.
Before the break of dawn.
Right.
Helping. No child labor laws. Oh my gosh. Our children, we act like they can't do. Without, abuse is so overused.
Right.
At this point.
Right.
And so now, these kids have to live a life dependent on the Spirit of God. Why is that? Because they have to depend on the sun for their life. That's how it was. That's the culture of the Bible. They had to get up when the sun came up, or before the sun came up, and they had to come down when the sun went down. Why? They had to get it in on God's clock. On the clock of the universe.
And they was looking at me. Go ahead, keep going.
Right, on the universe's timing. And that's what I mean when I say we have been set in a place, and if we want to, what's the goal? What's the main goal of message of God in the Word of God? Restoration. All of that was getting us to be restored back to. Why is that? Lost sheep coming home. Lost sheep come home. So we have to get restored on dependency. We have really been in some place that's such a blessing that this seems way out of the norm. And some of us are still trying to keep that old way up. I had a friend. No, I told somebody. I said I had to get my nails off because I didn't make it in time before the shop closed. It's been over about 2 weeks now, and definitely they're gone. I got them off, right? But I have another friend I was talking to, and she says, "Oh, my nails are normally they're thin, so I'm gonna do something to try to keep these on." Clothes. Listen, I have to do things around here that I didn't have to do at first. I couldn't do it with those nails on, and I can't invite people in to do things for me that I used to invite people inside.
I've had to work my butt off, and it's good. I've had to employ all of my build skills, my plumbing skills, the drywall, all of that. There's a book that I shared with pastoral friend years ago, and I told him this is years ago, and the book is called Plain and Simple. Plain and Simple. I don't know. I looked over here and I'm looking right now while we got the ability to do this. It's called Plain and Simple. And it's a book that was written by they got it on Kindle so you can get it. It's Plain and Simple, a woman's journey to the Amish. And this woman took a journey to an Amish community. And when she took a journey to the Amish community, she found out that they lived such simple lives that her life was complicated. And in her life being complicated, here she was a writer and she was doing this. I'm so glad for memory. I can remember the quotes where she said, creativity is messy. You can't be a perfectionist. And she said, I would be going through with my dishes and everything. And she said, and they washed the dishes with a joy. She said they had, and so what you're saying, you have no idea. I read that book, but what you're saying is they did this to the glory of God.
First of all, there's so many struggles that they don't have. No, everybody wears the same stuff. You know what I mean? So nobody looks at anybody else and using their energy on what you have and what I don't have, because there's no need to compare when everybody is on the same frequency. There was no reason to compare. But I want to get ready to say something. Okay, go ahead.
Right. No, I don't have. Just look up Plain and Simple: A Woman's Journey to an Amish. Keep going. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to go back to John 16 because I think this piece. I want you to hear this in your hearts.
Oh, you going to where?
John 16, right? 33 again. I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace and confidence. In the world you have tribulation and trials and distress and frustration. But be of good cheer, meaning this, take courage. What is that going to look like for you? This week, listen, tell yourself, take courage. Be of good cheer, take courage. Listen, he's not telling you put a smile on your face, even
and
though you're
talk
hard.
positively. Yeah.
This is not what this is saying. So be confident in Him. Take courage. Take courage. Be confident. Certain and undaunted. For I have overcome the world. I have deprived it of power to harm you and have conquered it for you. What does that mean? Did he say, now notice, he's not saying because he has taken the power from the world, so you're not going to be frustrated. That's not what this says. He said, no, you are going to, there will be trials and tribulations.
Right.
There will be frustration.
Right.
There will be frustration. And, but I have overcome that. I have overcome that oppression. That, what was overcome for you? The guilty feelings you will feel, or the feelings that some adversary will have you to try to rest in, because now things are being revealed, motives are being revealed. This is what Paul said. He said, I am not innocent. My conscience is clear, but it doesn't make me innocent. That means I might find out now that I got to listen to my own thoughts and be with myself, that there was some motives that I was operating in and they weren't pure.
Right.
He said, listen, I'm telling you this ahead of time so that you don't quit and cancel out this walk that you have, this progress that you was making before all of this happened. Don't quit. Take courage. Be confident.
That's the amen for me.
That's the amen. It's the amen for me. Be confident, Amos.
Oh, you can still.
Tanisha, no, I just remember.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say you can read.
Karima, be confident. Take courage.
Georgia, listen, and when y'all doing it, listen. I told you, I saw a picture where there were thousands of people in line to get food. Hey, listen, this is where you must take courage. And you got to understand Soul Factory, soldiers. This is not the season to be timid, apprehensive, or shy. As one of the first among equals in terms of just being a shepherd. My goal, my prayer for you is that you would take courage and do what you have to do. We are the Soul Factory. We are soldiers, sold out, living, delivered, in everlasting righteous service. And this is about us. And we have decided we're not going to be daunted by this. And that concludes what we will share today. If you want,
it was so good to talk with you, to be present, and to be used by the Lord, even in this day. And I pray again that you realize that we do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of God's mouth.
Amen.